That is good. Can you please just in the chat box so I can make the necessary adjustments? All right.
We can hear you. Oh, yeah.
All right. My name is Dalian Barnett. I am a technical support engineer with Inova Solutions Jamaica, um, and I'll be your presenter for this webinar this morning. Yeah, thank you. Sherma, do I hand back over to you now?
No, you go ahead with your presentation. We can begin.
All right. All right. Thank you. All right. so let's move on. All right. So this is our agenda for our Skype for Business to Teams transition. We'll look at introduction to Teams. We'll also look at why would you want to make this move to Teams. We'll also look at the transitioning journey. Also, a very important topic for existing Skype for Business users is managing coexistence and interoperability. And also, we'll look at a very small demo of what this looks like from the admin perspective. All right. So, what is Microsoft Teams? Well, Microsoft defines this as a hub for teamwork in Office 365. And why they use the term hub is because it is much more than, let's say, instant messaging and calls. The way how they integrated the entire Office 365 experience with Teams, this is very rich, and this have the potential for deep and seamless integration with your entire workflow. All right, so these are some of the options available. Some of these options may look familiar for the existing Skype for Business users, where okay, then you can host your meetings, you can chat and call, manage your contacts, etc. However, Teams also has the ability to integrate with third-party applications. You can also collaborate directly within Teams on documents. You can also do some sort of project management there as well, and you can just interact with your existing files right from within Teams as well. We'll take a look at that later on, especially for those who have never worked with Teams before. All right, so I want to, stress this a bit. So Teams is much more than just a technical migration, because number one is that people don't change automatically. So, just moving everyone to Teams without having some sort of end user engagement. Right, sorry about that. Right, so just moving everyone to Teams without any sort of end user training or sensitization, you may have issues where users might confuse Skype for Business with Teams. And I just want to make it clear that they're very two different products. Teams is an evolution for Skype for Business. And people and change are not a one size fits all, because I mean, you have some people who are ready to go with the flow, while others, may be resistant. And technical and user readiness go hand in hand. So you would want to ensure that your user migration plan and your technical migration plan goes hand in hand. That is very, very important. All right, so these are some of the custom attributes successful transition. You definitely want to get sponsorship from your executive level. in any sort of technical change is always good. You'll also want to ensure that you have an optimized technical environment, meaning that whatever devices and configurations should be done, you get that done. So, for example, ensuring that during the migration process, users will have access to Teams, etc. Another very important one is um, one sec, guys. I'm getting some disturbance. All right, all right. Sorry about that. All right. All right. So, what's in it for me? That's a very important question that the users will ask, and it's very important that you can answer that. Show them that okay, then by migrating to Teams, then these are the benefits, right? Um, Explicit use case. So every organization is different. Um, everyone has everyone has everyone has their specific way of using Teams. For example, for an insurance company, you may want to use Teams specifically for collaborating with external stakeholders. You want to work on some contracts. That would be your specific use case, for example. So that is very important to narrow down what how Teams will actually help you, right? And then this will lead to a more focused adoption strategy where, based on your specific use case, um, that's how you will, aim to adapt your users to using Microsoft Teams and your peer champions program. You know, we all have users who are much more fast paced than the ordinary users. You can use them to assist you in the transitioning process. Um, and also, you would want to consider the specific devices that your users are going to use. All right. So why make Teams? You have been using Skype for Business for many years now. It has been working for you. So why move to Teams? Well, number one is the and capabilities. Out of the box, Teams can do much more than Skype, right? Um, you have the background blur feature where it uses um, artificial intelligence and machine learning to, detect your background and detect you. It blurs out everything in your background so that it can be less distracting for users who you are into. You also have real-time transcription translations, right? Um, so simple example of that. We got on for this webinar where every word I say is automatically um, transcribed as well. And Teams is always being improved, and the service quality is always being considered as well. Also, the user experience is much more richer than that of Skype for Business, and Teams is a true cross-platform product, meaning that you can get Teams on macOS, you can use Teams on the web, and of course Teams for your Windows devices. Um, and operational excellence. The fact that Teams was built on as using modern architecture, modern technologies that scale, then Teams, offers that edge over Skype for Business. It is much more responsive, much quicker, and it scales better. All right. For your transitioning journey, for someone who hasn't used Teams before, then you definitely want to begin by defining teamwork for your organization, right? You would want to begin at, you know, upgrading to Teams before you actually understand what it is and understand how it can help you. So if you haven't used Teams before, first, I would suggest that you define teamwork for your organization. And I gave an example earlier where for an insurance company, that might mean that okay, then you want to collaborate with external stakeholders. So that would be your definition of teamwork, right? So that's where you'd begin, and that's where you'd focus your adoption strategy. Then you'd pilot teams, you deploy teams, and you'd adopt, and then finally you'd plan your upgrade, right? However, if you have used Teams before, then you can begin at planning your upgrade to Teams, right? And we'll look a bit more into that later. Hey guys, I'm still hearing some noises. I think I'm going to relocate.
All right, guys, let's just give Dillian like about 2 minutes to relocate because there's a lot of background noise. Sorry for the inconvenience, but yeah, sometimes we cannot help with the circumstances of our environment.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Hey, Sherma,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes, yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
awesome. I'm really sorry about that. All right. I hope this is much better. All right. All right. So
Yes,
in the
perfect.
previous slide, we looked at our end goal being upgrading to Teams, right? Which is the last option in blue. So what does that know? That means that Teams will be used for everything. So your chats and calling experience will be moved over Microsoft Teams from Skype for Business. Your meetings as well; those will be scheduled in Teams, and also existing data from Skype for Business, such as your contacts, will be migrated to Mac. They meant by upgrade to Teams, and the specific option for admins is the Teams only option. where your users will no longer be using Skype for Business anymore. That is the end goal, right? All right. So this is the experience. For example, this is my Skype for Business, right? So what happens to Skype for Business when you upgrade to Teams is that if you already had it installed, it will not be uninstalled, right? So if your users try to open Skype for Business, then the screen on the left right here, they will be greeted with that screen. Okay, then your organization has successfully migrated to Microsoft Teams. Okay, then do you want to go to Teams or do you still want to go to Skype for Business? If you select the option to go to Skype for Business, then the screen on the right is where you will land. So you will no longer be able to schedule meetings or accept calls or do any sort of communication over Skype for Business once your organization has successfully transitioned to Teams. However, you will be able to see all the meetings that you have, and if you had any chat history there, then you'll also be able to see that. But you won't be able to, let's say, um, um, new meetings or anything like that using Skype for Business. However, I mean, it's very important. Um, if you do get a meeting request for Skype for Business, Microsoft will automatically detect that and allow you to do things for business. And I think this is the last slide before we actually go into the is managing coexistence and interoperability. So how do we manage this? So, and for Skype for Business customers looking to transition to Teams, coexistence involves both Skype for Business and Teams working together in the same organization. So that means you have both applications installed side and side, and you can operate from any one of them. This is usually in cases where organizations are just, starting to adopt Teams. They would want to start here because this is a very subtle migration approach where, okay, then you can still introduce your users to Teams. However, they can revert to using Skype for Business if they choose to. So, they can get their feet wet without having to, let's say, transition their entire way of working in one go. So that helps them, just to warm up the teams a bit. Right. So I mentioned that you utilize the coexistent modes to control the Skype for Business experience. And when I get to my demo tenant, I will show you, what are the features available and what each option aims to achieve. And interoperability means allowing instant messaging or calls between Skype for Business and the Teams in the same organization. So, for example, your power users, if those users decide, okay, then I am going to use Teams only for all my work, then they can still interact with users who are still, not at that point. Users who are still using the Skype for Business experience to get work done. All right. So I have some additional resources here, which is just a bit more information about what is going to happen to Skype for Business and what are the plans for that. So Skype for Business will be defunct the 31st of July 2021. So that's next year. So you can get more information from this resource. So I'm going to pull up my tenant now, and we can look into that. So I'm going to bring you over there. Give me 1 sec. Oh, okay. What's happening here? So let me sign in. All right. So I'm logging into my tenant. I'm going to go over to the Teams ad, and this this part of the demo will be particularly showing how actually manage the modes um for administrators. So just 1 sec. All right, so let's go over here. All right. Okay. All right. All right. Awesome. So for admins, their upgrade, right? When they reach that point where okay, then they want to start to roll out teams of users adopt that as a part of their tool set. This is where they would come to actually manage the coexistent modes. So currently, this is on islands, meaning that users can use both Skype for Business and Teams apps, right? Um, However, for users who are just starting out and they are starting their transition journey over to work, this is the option that collaboration and meetings. So that means um, users will definitely receive their chats and their instant messaging. However, they will get to experience that rich integration that Teams offers. So literally, the user will now begin to experience why Teams is much more um, user friendly and offer much more value than Skype for Business, because this mode gives the difference. So okay, then you can do chat as well. However, the level of collaboration that you have in Teams, you can't do that in Skype for Business. So users will still be able to do their instant messaging and do their voice or video calls in Skype for Business. However, that integration with Office 365 experience will be offered from the team side. So that means they're experiencing the different outside of the box. The Teams only mode is what I was referring to. That's when your organization has transitioned everybody to Teams. Everybody's happy, everybody is experienced. And okay, then we want to just discontinue Skype for Business and use Teams only. this is the option that you choose after. And Skype for Business with Teams, which is this one, this is more towards users who have a Skype infrastructure deployed on premises, and not necessarily users who are using the Skype for Business online experience, where Microsoft manages all of that backend infrastructure. And Skype for Business only is what users who have ever, the transition journey would be on. So that's users who are using Skype for Business only know. When you open admin center, that you see selected if you haven't done any sort of change. Yeah, so that's it for my presentation. Sure.
All right, we're now in the question rounds, the time that you guys can ask questions. You can use the mic to ask your questions, or you can type it in the chat box. Please do not be shy. We are here to help you understand better, so feel free to ask whatever you need to ask. Oh, I see a question. Christopher. Dillian? In the chat box, Christopher asked a question.
Okay. If your organization has transitioned completely to Teams, but or external parties are still on Skype for Business. Okay, so what would happen in this case is that if you get meeting requests for Skype for Business from an external party, then if your users have Skype for Business installed, that means those users who are already transitioned and on Teams, then Teams will open that experience in Skype for Business. So you'll still be able to communicate with external parties who are still using Skype for Business.
Correct. We have that same situation still with our organization. So if we can use ourselves as an example, not everyone or not all our customers has transitioned over to Teams. So we do still get that link, and then it automatically opens in a Skype for Business setting. So it's not that you won't be able to communicate with people that or other parties that have Skype only. You can still use both.
Yes, that's correct.
Do we have any more questions?
Okay. Dedicated systems. Can you like give an example of a dedicated system? I have an idea, but I want to ensure that we're on the same line. Okay. In that case, in your migration process, you will have to ensure that these devices are Teams ready, and for that you can find documentation online. However, how the backend routing works is that if the system detects that you're using those systems that are dependent on Skype for Business, then it does the intelligent routing. So you'll still be able to, let's say, have your audio video conferencing and stuff like that. However, you have to take that device into consideration when you're looking at, let's say, the first step, which is defining teamwork for your organization. You're welcome. Any more questions?
I see Kurt sent one in the chat box.
All right. I'm reading. Give me a sec. Okay. That's a very good point. And that is for example, whenever you deploy, let's say, Office or Teams using any sort of policies, this is the experience that that you'll be getting. And once you select that, put in the background to include Teams, for example, in the demo tenant that I showed you, where you had different coexistent modes. Once you select any sort of coexistent mode that has to do with Teams, then Teams will silently download in the background, and I don't think you can change how that operates. So I think it's because Microsoft is moving more towards empowering, IT and end users, um, where okay, then you can provision services and products to users, and users won't get bombarded to, let's say, accept this or accept that. So I think that's the premise on which that was built. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I too have that same experience. So yeah. And just add a bit on that, Kurt. Once Teams has successfully downloaded, then for example, if that user gets a request to join a Teams meeting, then it will automatically open Teams for them. So yeah, so that's the user experience. So I would suggest that in your strategy to deploy Teams, you can make this very explicit to your users to say, okay, then don't be alarmed if you don't see any sort of progress bar. Once Teams has been downloaded, then it will automatically open for you. Just to let them be aware of what to expect.
Okay, Darlene, this is Kurt here. Hi, morning.
Hi, good morning.
All right, but what my experience was that a user joined um, a team meeting and a document was sent to the entire team within that meeting, and when they clicked on the document to download, there was no indicator that the document was being downloaded. Now this was probably a 20 meg document that they were downloaded. And because they didn't see any status bar or any progress indicator indicating that the document has started downloading or the document is being downloaded, they clicked on it probably about 20 times thinking that, well, they're not seeing anything, so they're thinking that it's not being downloaded. Is there any fix for that?
All right. So I may have to just double check that to see if there's some option in the Teams admin panel. So I could double check that for you and probably send you some information around that. However, um, once a user is in Teams and they click on a document, they should see the status that your document is currently being downloaded. They won't see a progress bar per se, but they will see a pop-up notification in the bottom right hand corner of the screen to say that okay, then the document that you clicked on is now downloaded. And then once that document has downloaded, then it will pop up to say that okay, then your document was downloaded and is now ready. But I will
Well,
check on that for you.
Correct.
no, I haven't. As I said, I sat with the user and we look for that pop-up notification, and it wasn't there. So that's why I asked the question. If
Kurt,
it's
did you guys check this in the notification settings
from which
from
side?
the team? Whoever's admin from the teams, who is your is that you?
No, I didn't. No.
Oh,
It actually
because
was from the client, from a client side.
okay. You have Teams downloaded in your this is downloaded
Yes.
on your desktop Teams. Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, because we do have this notification as well for our own organization, so you have to enable it. I will not back myself 100%, but if I'm not mistaken, we enabled this notification, so we get it on the bottom right corner, as Dillian was saying, and then it automatically goes in your download
The
in
download
download
folder.
section from your files.
Yeah.
Yes. So if I were you, please check in your settings to
Mhm.
see if you can enable the notifications, because if you have them turned off, I happen to do this a lot myself. I do not get any pop-ups from any actions that's been taking place in Teams unless I open Teams myself. So I do advise you to check in your notification settings, and if it is enabled, then I do advise you to let Dillian maybe advise you a little better on what you can possibly do in this situation.
All right, no problem. Thanks very much.
Do we have any more questions? Let me see our chat box here. Oh, this is a good question, Dillian, from Christopher. Dillian, are you there? Maybe I'm not sure if the connection maybe.
Oh, yes, I'm here. I was saying that that's a very important question, Christopher. However, I've never done any work around that myself, but I could check in with a couple of my guys for you to see if they have ever done anything around that before, and if they have, we could send you some information on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
In regards to the GoToMeeting, I do know that we just joined the GoToMeetings apart, because I see one example was the GoToMeetings. We just dial in on a separate call, so we do not link it with Teams. I do not think there's an option to do that either, being that we do use GoToMeetings a lot as well. WebEx, I've never checked if there's maybe an option to link it with Teams, but that is a really good question indeed. Dillian can maybe check this with our other solutions architect to see if they've ever done something like this and get back to you on that, Christopher.
Yes, I will. I'll just send that question over to them right now.
All right. Do we have any more questions? You guys can also use the microphone. Don't be shy.
I don't see any more questions coming in.
Okay, and I think we'll go ahead in our wrap up phase. Um, Thank you guys for joining. Please be sure to follow us on our social media channels. Here you can also see our upcoming events. We have a lot of live in-person events in Jamaica, for example, and in other locations in the Caribbean. So depending wherever you're joining from, because we do have people from kind of all over here. Um, we also have our next upcoming webinar, the ending of next month. So please be pending for our invite so you guys don't miss out on these cool topics. And next month is a really interesting topics. It's one of our own platforms. We have our Inova store and Inova portal that we would like you guys to get a better view into and how you can make purchasing easier and experience a whole other experience than going through all the emails and the back and forth to get a simple quotation for some products. So I would like to thank you guys for joining, and a special thanks to Dillian for taking the time out to prepare this webinar for you guys. A very good job. Just in case you guys don't know, Dillian is joining remotely from Jamaica, and I'm all the way in Curacao. So as you can imagine, we had some tough technical difficulties today. So I thank you guys for the patience in that area as well. If you guys have any questions, you can still type this in the chat box, because after the call we can see this. And for the two people, which is Kurt and Christopher, we will get back or get in touch with you guys after this call, so you guys can also have a contact person, either me or Dillian or both of us, so we can get those answers to you guys. Okay, thank you guys for joining. Have a great day and see you guys soon.